Okay, let's just dive right in. We are looking at a title today that, I have to be honest, it triggers every single one of my scam alert sensors.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like a late-night infomercial, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It sounds like something you'd find in a spam folder, right next to offers for, cheap pharmaceuticals or a Nigerian prince who wants to give you his fortune.
It has that whole get-rich-quick feel that usually sends any rational person running for the hills. It just screams, too good to be true.
Exactly. We're talking about the 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. And the promise is right there on the cover, just staring you in the face. Escape 9 to 5, live anywhere, and join the new rich.
I mean, come on.
A 4-hour work week. It sounds impossible. It sounds like a total pipe dream. But, and this is where it gets really, really interesting, this book has sold millions of copies. It pretty much launched the entire digital nomad movement we see today. So clearly there has to be something more going on here than just a catchy, unbelievable title.
There is. And I think to really get this book, you have to kind of suspend your disbelief for a minute.
Yeah.
You have to look past the marketing flash of the title and realize Ferriss isn't actually suggesting you sit on a couch and do nothing for the rest of your life.
Right. It's not a book about being lazy.
Not all. It's not about idleness. It's a book about ruthless efficiency, about leverage, and about what he calls lifestyle design.
A lifestyle design.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a key phrase we're going to hear a lot. But before we get into the how, I really want to talk about the why. Because for most of us, the 9 to 5 isn't just a job.
No, it's the default setting for life. It's just what you do.
It's the water we swim in.
Yeah.
And Ferriss attacks that default setting from page 1.
He does. He calls it the deferred life plan.
The deferred life plan.
Think about the story we're all sold, from the time we're in school. You work hard, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job. Then you work 9 to 5, or let's be honest, it's usually 8 to 6 these days, for 40 years. You tolerate the work, you save every penny you can, and you just delay all your gratification.
You put everything off.
Everything. And why? So that at age 65, you can finally retire and have freedom.
That's the classic slave save retire model. It's basically an agreement you make with yourself that says, I will trade the best, most energetic years of my life for a payout at the very end.
Exactly. And Ferriss just argues that is a terrible, terrible trade. He calls retirement worst-case scenario insurance.
Worst-case scenario insurance. I like that.
It's not the goal. It's the backup plan in case you fail to create a life you enjoy now. He says you're buying freedom at the very end of your life when you're least physically capable of actually enjoying it.
That's a dark thought. You save up all this money to travel the world when you might have bad knees and no energy.
It's kind of a gamble, isn't it? A huge one. You're betting you'll even be healthy enough or even be around to collect on that promise.
Yeah, that's a bet I'm not sure I want to take.
And it's all based on this assumption that work is something to be endured, not something that can be designed. Ferriss suggests we need to completely break that timeline. Instead of hoarding all your free time for the end of your life, you should be sprinkling mini retirements all throughout your life.
Mini retirements. I like the sound of that.
And to do that, you need to join what he calls the new rich, the NR.
The NR. Okay, so who are these people? Is this just, code for trust fund kids or .com billionaires who got lucky?
Not at all, and that's the most important distinction. The old rich are defined by absolute wealth, having millions and millions in the bank.
Bragging rights.
Exactly. The new rich are a subculture that completely abandons that deferred plan. They don't care about being a millionaire just to have zeros in a bank account. They care about mastering two very specific currencies: time and mobility.
Time and mobility. So it's not really about the money itself.
No, the money is just a tool. Think about it this way. If you have $5 million in the bank, but you work 80 hours a week, and you can't leave your city because you have to be in the office, are you rich?
According to this philosophy, no. You're a very well-paid prisoner.
You're in a golden cage. But what if you make, say, $50,000 a year, but you only work 4 hours a week, and you can live in Thailand or Argentina, where your money goes 5 times as far?
Then you are the new rich.
You are living a better life than the person in the cage.
That is a massive, massive shift in perspective. It's moving the goalposts from accumulating stuff to controlling your own time. But, I can hear people listening right now thinking, okay, that sounds great in a book, but I have a mortgage, I have kids, I have a boss. I can't just snap my fingers and become new rich.
And that's a completely fair point. The transition isn't just flipping a mental switch. It requires a systematic, almost ruthless dismantling of your current work habits.
And Ferriss provides a roadmap for that.
He does. It's an acronym because, of course, it is called DEAL.
Deal. D-A-L. Okay, let's walk through it.
So D is for definition. That's all about changing the rules, rewriting your mindset about what success even looks like, and doing the real math on what you actually need to live your dream life.
Okay, D is definition.
E is for elimination. This is where he just takes a sledgehammer to traditional time management. He basically says time management is dead, you need to just stop doing things.
Which sounds absolutely terrifying to a type A personality like me.
Oh, it causes panic attacks. We'll get into that. Then A is for automation. This is about putting your income and your life on autopilot, outsourcing, virtual assistants, building systems that run without you.
And the last one.
And finally, L is for liberation. That's the mobility part, escaping the office, negotiating remote work, traveling the world.
Okay, but hang on. Before we dive into all that, there's an important note for employees, right? The order changes if you're not your own boss.
Correct. Very important distinction. If you have a boss, the order becomes DELA. You do definition and elimination first, sure. But then you need liberation. You need to negotiate that remote work, get freedom from the desk before you try to automate.
Ah, okay. Why is that?
Because you need to free up your time and your physical presence before you can build the systems to replace your tasks. If you try to automate your job while you're sitting in a cubicle right next to your boss, you're going to get noticed and you're probably going to get fired.
That's a very good point. So today, let's really dig into those first three pillars: definition, elimination, and automation. That seems to be the engine that makes this whole thing run. Let's start with D for definition.
D for definition. And this is where we have to talk about some math. But not boring math. This is scary, eye-opening math. Ferriss really focuses on the difference between absolute income and relative income.
Okay, lay this out for us. Because usually when we talk about salaries, we just look at that big annual number.
Right, that's your absolute income. It's the number you tell people at a party. I make $100,000 a year. Society tells us that person is automatically richer than someone making $50,000. It seems obvious. 100 is bigger than 50.
Sure, Jane Doe makes 100K. John Doe makes 50K. Jane wins. Jane buys a nicer car.
In the old game, yes. But Ferriss introduces what he calls the freedom multiplier. He says money is multiplied in practical value by the number of W's you control.
The W's.
What you do, when you do it, where you do it, and with whom you do it. The more W's you control, the more your money is actually worth to you.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
So let's look at Jane and John again. Jane earns that $100,000, but she works 80 hours a week. She's a high-powered lawyer or an investment banker. She's chained to her desk, weekends included.
Okay, so let's break that down. 80 hours a week. If we assume maybe 50 work weeks in a year, that's 4,000 hours.
Exactly. So you take her $100,000 and divide it by those 4,000 hours. Her hourly rate, her relative income, is $25 an hour.
Ouch. When you put it like that, it doesn't sound so glamorous. It sounds like a lot of work for 25 bucks an hour.
It sounds like a grind. Now let's look at John. He makes $50,000. Half of Jane's salary on paper. But John has designed his life so he only works 10 hours a week.
Only 10 hours? How?
Maybe he's a specialized online consultant, or he's built an e-commerce business that mostly runs itself. The how comes later, but for now, just accept the premise. 10 hours a week.
Okay, so 10 hours a week, 50 weeks. That's only 500 hours a year.
So now we take his $50,000 and divide it by 500 hours. His hourly rate is $100.
Wow. Okay, so in terms of relative income, the amount of money he gets for every hour of his life that he trades, John is 4 times richer than Jane.
Precisely. And that's where the multiplier kicks in big time. Because John has freedom of location, he can take his $50,000 and move to a place like Buenos Aires or Chiang Mai in Thailand.
Places with a much lower cost of living.
Right. In those places, his cost of living might be, 30% of what Jane is paying in New York or London. So his purchasing power effectively triples or quadruples. All of a sudden, John is living like an absolute king, while Jane is eating sad takeout at her desk at 9 p.m.
That is a total brain flip. We are so conditioned to just chase that big annual salary number. But hearing it broken down like that, Jane is basically a high-paid indentured servant, and John is free.
That's the core idea.
But getting to where John is, that takes real risk. You have to step off that standard, well-trodden path. Now, that brings us to one of the most powerful concepts in the entire book, I think, fear setting.
Fear setting, yes.
Yeah.
This is absolutely crucial because usually what stops people from even trying to live the John lifestyle isn't a lack of desire. It's paralysis. We are just terrified of the unknown.
And this came from Ferriss's own personal crisis, right? He wasn't always this 4-hour guru.
Oh, not at all. In 2002, he was running a sports nutrition company called Brain Quicken, and by his own account, he was absolutely miserable.
But he was making money, wasn't he?
He was. His absolute income was great, maybe $40K a month, but he was working 14-hour days, 7 days a week. He was the one answering customer service emails at 2 in the morning. He felt completely trapped by his own success.
I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, even if it's not their own business. You know you need a change, but you're terrified that if you quit your job or take a risk, your whole life will just implode.
Exactly. So instead of goal setting, which is usually just vague stuff like I want to be happy, he did fear setting. He sat down and defined his nightmare. He wrote it all down.
What does that mean, defined the nightmare?
He asked himself, what is the absolute worst that could possibly happen if I did this, if I took this big trip, if I stepped away from the business for a month?
And when you actually force yourself to write it down, what does that look like?
He realized the disaster scenario wasn't actually death or homelessness or anything permanent. Okay, maybe the business falters a bit. Maybe he loses some customers. Maybe he has to sell his furniture.
Inconvenient, but not life-ending.
Exactly. On a scale of 1 to 10 of permanent life impact, the absolute worst-case scenario was maybe a 3 or a 4. And this is the most important part. It was almost completely reversible.
That's the key word, isn't it? Reversible.
He could always go back to being a personal trainer. He could get a job as a bartender. He was an educated guy. He wasn't going to starve on the street. The worst case was just inconvenient for a while.
But the upside, what was the potential reward?
The upside, the probable positive life change of reclaiming his time, his sanity, and traveling the world was a 9 or a 10 out of 10, and it would be a permanent upgrade to his life.
That's the quote from the book that always sticks with me. What we fear doing most is usually what we most need to do. By defining the fear, you take away its power. You realize the monster under the bed is just a sock. The worst case is survivable, but the status quo is actually the real danger, because you're slowly dying of boredom and stress.
You're dying a slow death. The risk of inaction is actually much higher than the risk of action, but our brains don't see it that way because inaction feels safer.
So once we've stared our fears in the face, we need to know what we're actually aiming for. Which brings us to dreamlining.
Dreamlining, right. This is the antidote to that deferred life plan. Ferriss completely rejects the standard advice to be realistic.
Yeah, he says that's terrible advice.
He says there's actually less competition for the big, unrealistic goals because everyone else is fighting for the mediocre middle. But the problem with standard goals is that they're just too ambiguous. I want to be wealthy. I want to travel more. What does that even mean?
It usually means I want to buy a lot of stuff, or I want to not worry about my bills.
Or it means I want to be like the fat man in the red BMW.
I love that image. Explain the fat man in the red BMW.
It's this recurring character in the book. It's his symbol for the person who has the high absolute income, buys the flashy car to compensate for a miserable life, and is just fundamentally bored and unfulfilled. He's rich, but he's not free.
He's trapped.
He's trapped. Dreamlining is about defined, actionable steps. It shifts your thinking from I want to, I will do, and it all starts with calculating your TMI, your target monthly income.
Okay, this is where we get really specific about the actual cost of our dream lifestyle. Because I think most people have this huge, scary number in their head. I need $1 million to be happy.
Exactly, the millionaire myth. So let's say your dream is to drive an Aston Martin. You think, okay, I need $200,000 sitting in the bank to buy that car.
Which feels impossible. If you're saving $1,000 a month, you'll be dead before you get there.
Right. But dreamlining asks a different question. It asks, what is the monthly payment to access that car? What's the lease?
Okay, so what would that be?
A lease on a high-end car like that might be, let's say, $2,003 a month. That includes insurance, maintenance, everything. All in. $2,000.
That's a solvable problem. That's a cash flow problem, not a net worth problem. You don't need $1 million in the bank. You need an extra $2,000 a month.
It makes it tangible. It brings it down to earth. Let's say you want a personal assistant. You don't need to hire someone full-time for $50 a year. You can get a great virtual assistant for, say, $400 a month.
You want to spend a month in a villa in Bali. That's not $1 million. That might be $1,500.
Precisely. So you add it all up. The car, the travel, the assistant, the hobbies you want to pursue, and your TMI, your target monthly income, is often shockingly lower than you'd expect.
So you list out all your specific dreams, you convert them into a monthly cash flow number, and usually people realize they can live their quote-unquote millionaire lifestyle for maybe an extra few $1,000s a month as long as they have the time to enjoy it.
Yes. It turns this vague, impossible mountain into a series of small, climbable hills.
Okay, so we've defined the new game.
Yeah.
We understand relative income. We've done our fear setting. We know our target monthly income. But now we hit the wall. The reality.
The reality of the 60-hour work week.
I'm working 10 hours a day. I don't have time to start a side business or learn a new skill. I am drowning in emails and meetings.
And this is where Ferriss gets really aggressive. Welcome to Section 2. E is for elimination.
Elimination. This isn't just, clean your desk and make a to-do list. Ferriss basically argues that everything we know about time management is wrong.
Completely wrong. He starts by drawing a sharp distinction between effectiveness and efficiency. This is a Peter Drucker concept originally, but Ferriss really hammers it home.
Okay, what's the difference?
Efficiency is doing a task in the most economical way possible. It's about doing things right. Effectiveness is about doing the right things.
I love that quote he uses. Doing something unimportant well does not make it important.
That is the trap of the modern knowledge worker. We are obsessed with clearing our inbox. We are incredibly efficient at answering email. We have color-coded folders and complex filing systems.
We're inbox zero heroes.
But if 90% of that email doesn't actually move you closer to your most important goals, you are just efficiently wasting your life. Ferriss says you need to forget time management. You don't need to fill every second. You need to eliminate the noise so you can focus on the signal.
And the biggest weapon in his arsenal for elimination is the 80-20 rule, Pareto's law. We've all heard this before, right? 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. But the way Ferriss applies it is, honestly, it's kind of brutal.
It is brutal, but it's brutally effective. The story goes that Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist, first noticed this in his garden. He saw that 80% of the peas came from just 20% of his pea pods.
A simple observation that applies to almost everything.
It does. So Ferriss looked at his business, remember? He was working those 14-hour days, and he asked himself two questions. First, which 20% of my customers are producing 80% of my revenue?
And what was the answer?
He analyzed his 120 wholesale customers. He found that just 5 of them, 5 customers, were bringing in 95% of his revenue. The other 115 were basically just noise.
Wow. But it gets worse, right? He asked a second question.
He did. He asked, which 20% of my customers are causing 80% of my problem and my stress?
And let me guess, it wasn't the top 5 who were paying all the bills.
Not a chance. It was a handful of the low-revenue, high-maintenance customers, the ones who were calling all the time, complaining about shipping, demanding refunds, just eating up all his time and mental energy.
So the normal business advice is, the customer is always right. You bend over backwards to appease them. What did Ferriss do?
He fired them.
He fired his customers. How do you even do that? You can't just send an email saying, you're fired.
Well, effectively, you can. For the worst offenders, he literally told them, I don't think we're a good fit for your needs anymore. I recommend you go to this competitor. For others, he just raised his minimum order size or set really strict boundaries. From now on, I am only available by email between these hours.
Yeah.
If they didn't like it, they left.
That takes some serious guts.
It really does. But look at the result. He lost maybe 2% of his total revenue, but he eliminated 80% of his headaches and freed up huge blocks of his time.
And then, this is the genius part, he took all that new free time and focused it on one thing.
Duplicating the profiles of his top 5 customers. He went out and found more people, just like the good ones. And the result was his work hours plummeted from 80 a week to about 15, and his income doubled.
That is the power of elimination in a nutshell. You stop trying to do everything and please everyone. You find the 20% that actually matters, and you ruthlessly discard the rest.
But there's a companion law to Pareto that you have to use. Otherwise, you'll just fill that new free time with more junk work. And that is Parkinson's law.
Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If I give you 2 weeks to write a project report, how long is it going to take you?
It's going to take 2 weeks. I'll procrastinate. I'll do a bunch of research, which is really just me Googling things. I'll spend hours tweaking the font.
Right. But what if you have a flight to catch in 2 hours, and you absolutely must finish that same report before you leave for the airport? Can you do it?
Oh, absolutely. I'll skip all the fluff. I'll write the 3 core points that matter, and I'll hit send.
And you know what? The quality is usually just as good, if not better, because you didn't have time to overthink it and add unnecessary complexity. That is Parkinson's law in action.
So the 9-to-5 workday is an illusion. We fill 8 hours because we are given 8 hours.
We do. So Ferriss says you should create artificial, impossible deadlines for yourself. Force yourself to leave the office at 4 p.m. no matter what. Your brain will find a way to prioritize and get the critical stuff done.
So you combine the two. You limit your tasks to only the important few using 80-20, and then you limit the time you allow yourself to do them using Parkinson's law. That creates a kind of hyperproductivity.
Exactly. But to really focus, you have to control your inputs, the constant stream of information, which brings us to his idea of a low-information diet.
This is where he loses some people, I think. He suggests going on a full-on media fast. No news, no aimless web surfing, no TV.
He claims he hasn't watched the news or bought a newspaper in over 5 years, and people hear that and they think, that's just being ignorant.
It sounds irresponsible, doesn't it?
Yeah. He calls it selective ignorance. His argument is that information consumes our attention, and your attention is your most limited, most valuable resource. So he has a simple test question you should ask yourself before consuming any piece of media.
What's the question?
Will I use this information for something immediate and important? If the answer is no, you should ignore it.
But people worry. What if something big happens? What if a war starts? What if there's another pandemic? I'll be completely out of the loop.
That's where he says you can use what he calls social hacking. If something that important happens, you won't need to watch the news. People will tell you.
Your mom will call.
The barista at the coffee shop will be talking about it. Your friends will text you. You won't miss the really big stuff. But what you will miss is the hours of doom scrolling, the celebrity gossip, and the daily dose of outrage that just clogs up your brain and prevents you from doing any kind of deep, focused work.
That's a very fair point. Most news is just noise that makes us feel anxious, but gives us zero actionable information. Speaking of noise, we have to talk about the single biggest time waster in the modern corporate world.
Email.
Email.
Email is the enemy. It is a finely tuned interruption machine. Every single time that little ding goes off, it shatters your concentration. And studies show it takes about 20 minutes to get back into a state of deep focus after an interruption.
So Ferriss advocates for interrupting interruption.
Yes, and his primary tactic here is email batching.
This sounds terrifying for most employees, but tell us how it works.
It's simple, but not easy. First, you turn off all the alerts. The ding must die, the pop-ups must die, and then you only check your email at specific scheduled times, maybe twice a day. Say 12:00 p.m. and 4:00 p.m. That's it.
Okay, but my inbox is a monster. If I just stop answering emails for hours at a time, people are going to get angry. My boss will think I'm slacking off. They expect instant responses.
And that's why you have to train them. You have to manage their expectations. He recommends setting up an autoresponder, even when you're in the office.
An autoresponder? What does it say?
Something polite but firm, like, "Thank you for your message. Due to a high workload, I am currently checking and responding to email twice daily at 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. EST. If your matter is urgent and cannot wait, please call my cell phone at number."
And the funny thing is, almost nobody ever calls the cell phone.
Almost never, because 99% of so-called emergencies are just other people's impatience. By the time you check your email at 4:00 p.m., half of the problems have already solved themselves. The person figured it out on their own. You're teaching people to respect your time.
Okay, but now if you're an employee, you're definitely thinking, my boss would absolutely fire me if I put up an autoresponder like that without asking.
And that's where the puppy dog close comes in.
The puppy dog close. I love this. This is a classic sales technique, right?
It is. If a pet store wants to sell you a puppy, they don't say, "Buy this dog for $500. They say, "Why don't you take the puppy home for the weekend? No obligation. If you don't love it, just bring it back on Monday."
But once the puppy is in the house and the kids have named it, nobody ever brings the puppy back.
Nobody brings the puppy back. So you use the same technique with your boss.
How does that work?
You don't ask for a permanent, scary change. You frame it as a small, reversible trial. You say, "Hey, boss, I'm really trying to focus and crush this big project for you. I feel like I'm getting constantly distracted by email. Can I try a little productivity experiment for just 2 days?"
Just 2 days. Low stakes.
Very low stakes. "I'm going to try checking email only at these specific times so I can get more deep work done. If it causes any problems at all, I'll go right back to the old way immediately."
And because it's just a trial, the boss almost always says yes.
They do. And then, for those 2 days, you work like an absolute maniac. You deliver incredible results. You get more done in 2 days than you normally do in a week. You prove that the method makes you more valuable, not less.
And once the boss sees that spike in productivity, they won't want you to go back.
Exactly. You prove the effectiveness, and the method gets accepted. It becomes the new normal.
That is brilliant. Okay, so let's recap where we are. We've defined our new life. We know the math. We've eliminated all the ways for working fewer, more focused hours. We're efficient machines. But we are still doing the work.
You're still trading your time for money. If you stop working, the money stops.
And that is where Section 3 comes in. And this is where we really separate our time from our income. A is for automation.
Automation is all about outsourcing your life. It's about getting over the idea that just because you can do something, it doesn't mean you should be the one doing it.
There is a huge psychological hurdle here, though. I struggle with this one myself. That little voice that says, why should I pay someone to do something I can just do myself? It feels lazy, or it feels like a waste of money.
But it goes right back to that relative income math we did at the start. If your time is worth, say, $100 an hour based on your dreamlining goals, and you are spending an hour scheduling appointments or arguing with the cable company or researching flight prices.
Tasks you could pay someone else maybe $10 an hour to do.
Exactly. In that scenario, you are losing money. You are literally burning $90 of your own valuable time just to feel productive doing a low-value task.
That's a punch in the gut when you think of it that way.
The goal is to build a system to replace yourself. And the primary tool for this, at least to start, is the virtual assistant, the VA.
Ferriss has some incredible, almost unbelievable examples of this. The classic case study that always makes me laugh is A.J. Jacobs, the editor from Esquire magazine.
Oh, the A.J. Jacobs story is legendary. It really illustrates the extreme end of this philosophy, but it makes the point so well.
So A.J. reads the book, he gets inspired, and he hires a team of VAs from a company in India called Brickwork. And he starts outsourcing everything, not just his work stuff.
Right. He starts with the basics, researching articles, transcribing interviews, but then he gets kind of addicted to the power of it. He starts having them manage his personal life.
Like what?
He has them pay his bills. He has them buy birthday presents for his kids. But the absolute peak moment, the one that everyone remembers, was the chicken dance Elmo incident.
Okay, you have to tell this story.
So AJ gets into a silly argument with his wife, Julie. It was something really petty. And instead of just apologizing himself, he decides to outsource the apology.
No. He outsourced an apology to his wife. That is bold.
It's completely insane. He emails his VA in India, a woman named Asha, and he gives her the details of the fight. He says, please email my wife, tell her I love her, but maybe gently remind her that she forgets things too sometimes.
Oh, that's a terrible idea.
It should have ended in divorce, but Asha, the VA, is a genius. She writes this beautiful, diplomatic, third-party email to the wife. She finds an e-card with teddy bears hugging, and she sends it.
And what happened?
It worked. The wife thought it was hilarious, and the fact that it came from a neutral third party actually de-escalated the situation better than AJ could have himself.
That's amazing. But it really proves the point. We hold on to all these tasks because we think only I can do this properly. But often, someone else can do it just as well, or even better, and without all the emotional baggage we bring to it.
Precisely. But you have to be careful. You can't just dump a mess on a VA and expect miracles. Ferriss has a golden rule here. Eliminate before you delegate.
Right. Don't automate a process that's already inefficient. If you have a VA doing something that shouldn't be done at all, you're just scaling up your own stupidity.
And people have real concerns, right? What about security? What if they steal my identity? Did you just buy a Porsche in China with my credit card?
Yeah, the idea of handing over your passwords and credit card info to a stranger in Bangalore sounds incredibly risky.
It does on the surface, but Ferriss argues that the risk is way overstated. If you use a reputable professional firm like the ones he mentions, they have incredibly intense security, biometric entry to their offices, paperless desks, so no data can be written down and walked out with. It's often more secure than just handing your credit card to a waiter at a restaurant.
That's a good point. So let's get practical. If I hire a VA tomorrow, what do I tell them to do? How do I give instructions?
You have to be painfully specific. This is where most people fail. They give a vague instruction like, research the market for this product. That's useless. You need to give instructions at a second-grade reading level.
So step by step.
Go to Google, search for these 3 exact keywords. Put the top 5 results you find into an Excel spreadsheet with columns for price, website, and customer rating. Do not spend more than 2 hours on this task. Be that specific.
And deadlines are important.
Very important. Short deadlines. 24 to 48 hours. If you give a VA a week to do something simple, Parkinson's law kicks in for them too, and they'll take a week.
Okay, so VAs can handle all the day-to-day administrative clutter of life. But that just frees up your time. It doesn't actually generate money while you sleep. The holy grail of the 4-hour work week is what he calls The muse.
The muse. And this is a very distinct concept from a business in the traditional sense. A normal business like a restaurant or a consulting firm usually demands more of your time as it grows.
It becomes a monster that eats your life.
Right. A muse, on the other hand, is an automated vehicle designed from the ground up specifically to generate cash without consuming your time.
It's a cash machine.
It is a machine.
Yeah.
And the structure of that machine is everything. We have a perfect example of this in the book with a guy named Doug Price and his company Pro Sound Effects.
Doug Price is the absolute poster child for this model. Tell us how his business actually works, because it's the perfect illustration.
So Doug sells libraries of sound effects to audio professionals. Things like the sound of a car crash or a spaceship or a bird chirping. But here is the absolute key. He holds no inventory. He doesn't have a garage full of CDs or a warehouse.
So how does he sell them if he doesn't have them?
He uses a model called dropshipping.
Let's define that clearly, because dropshipping is a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot and often misunderstood.
Very true. In this specific effective model, it means the manufacturer holds all the product and all the risk. A customer goes to Doug's website. They buy a sound library for $325. That money goes directly to Doug's bank account.
Okay.
Then, automatically, the order is forwarded to the original manufacturer or publisher of that sound library. The manufacturer then ships the product directly to the customer.
So Doug never even touches the box.
Who never sees it, never touches it. The manufacturer then bills Doug, say, $158 for the cost of the product and the shipping. Doug keeps the difference.
Which is about $167 per sale.
For doing basically nothing. And what is Doug doing while this is all happening?
He's traveling the world.
He's living his life. He spends maybe 30 minutes a day just checking the system to make sure no errors occurred. His effective hourly rate, if you calculate it, is something like over $3,000 an hour.
That is the dream. But the trick, and this is a big trick, is picking the right product. You can't just decide to drop ship generic t-shirts or toothbrushes. You'll get absolutely crushed by Amazon.
No, you'll get destroyed. This is where Ferriss hammers on niche selection. He has a great saying, if everyone is your customer, then no one is your customer. You need to find a niche that is an inch wide and a mile deep. You want to be the big fish in a very small pond.
And there are some wild examples of this in the book. Danny Black.
Danny Black. He runs a website called shortdwarf.com. He rents dwarfs for entertainment at parties and events.
That is certainly a very specific niche.
It is. And look, we can debate the societal aspects of that all day, but purely as a business model, it is genius in its specificity. Because it's so specific, there's no competition. He can charge premium prices, like $149 an hour.
Right.
There is no price war in the dwarf rental market. He isn't competing with Walmart on price.
Another great example was the supplements guy, the NO2 supplement.
Right, Ed Bird.
Yep.
He created a high-end nitric oxide supplement for bodybuilders. He didn't try to sell it to every person who walks into a gym. He targeted only the most serious athletes.
And he priced it high.
Very high, $79.95 a bottle sent it, to signal that it was a premium product.
Yeah.
And crucially, he limited his distribution. He only sold it through GNC.
Why would you limit your distribution? Wouldn't you want it to be everywhere?
Not if you want to automate your life. If you sell to a giant like Walmart, Walmart dictates your price. They squeeze your margins down to nothing. By going exclusive with a single high-end retailer, he kept his margins fat and his headaches low. High margin, low volume, low hassle. That is the Muse formula.
But, and this is the part where I think most people fail, how do you know if anyone will actually buy your product? Do you spend $50,000 in a year of your life developing the perfect thing first?
No. Absolutely not. That is the old, broken way of doing things. Ferriss is a huge advocate for microtesting. You have to test the market before you build the product.
How do you do that?
Let's say you have an idea for a yoga mat for French bulldogs. It's a niche product. Instead of going out and manufacturing 500 of them, you set up a simple 3-page website, you write some copy describing the product, you put a price on it, and then you run $50 worth of Google ads targeting keywords like French bulldog yoga or dog yoga mat.
Okay, so people click the ad, they go to the site, they think this is great, they click buy. Then what happens? You don't actually have any mats to sell them.
When they click the buy button, you take them to a page that says something like, "Thank you for your interest. We are currently out of stock due to high demand. Please leave your email to be notified the moment we have more."
So it's a dry test. You're faking it.
Exactly. You then track what percentage of people who visited the site actually clicked buy. That is real hard data. That's not asking your mom if she thinks it's a good idea. That is a stranger voting with their credit card.
And if 10 out of 100 people try to buy, You probably have a viable business.
You do. You can now confidently go and get the mats manufactured. If 0 people try to buy, you shut down the website, and your total loss was $50 in a weekend.
You're testing the market, not the product. That saves so much time and heartbreak. I think everyone has that one friend who spent their entire life savings on some invention that it turned out nobody actually wanted.
We all know that person. Micro-testing is the vaccine against that tragedy.
Okay, so let's zoom out. We've gone through the whole DL framework. We've defined the dream and the actual cost. We've eliminated all the busy work and the noise. We've automated our income with a Muse and our daily chores with a VA.
We're free. We've done it. We are the new rich.
But what happens then?
And this brings us to the outro and to the final, and perhaps the most provocative and important thought in the entire book, what he calls the void.
The void. Because we spend our entire lives complaining that we're too busy. We fantasize about having an empty calendar. If I just had more time, I'd finally be happy.
But Ferriss gives a stark warning that when you actually succeed, when you claw back 40 hours a week of your life, it can be absolutely terrifying.
The silence can be deafening.
It is. You have to remember his other core idea. The opposite of happiness isn't sadness, it's boredom. If you successfully remove the distraction of being constantly busy at work, you are left alone with yourself. And you have to face the really big questions. Who am I really? What is my purpose? Why am I here? When you're frantically responding to emails all day, you don't have time to answer those questions.
So you see people achieve this freedom, and then they just have a meltdown.
It happens frequently. They get depressed. They feel useless and adrift. That's why he says your to-do list has to be replaced with a to-be list.
A to-be list? What's that?
You have to fill that new void with something meaningful. And that's not just drinking Mai Tais on the beach. That gets really boring after about 3 days.
Right.
You need to fill it with learning. Pick up a language, learn a martial art, learn to cook. You need to fill it with service volunteering, helping others, contributing to something bigger than yourself. You need to fill it with mastery.
So the 4-hour work week isn't really about doing nothing. It's about clearing the deck so you finally have the space to do the things that actually matter to you.
Precisely. It's about becoming the author of your own life rather than just letting the default settings of society write the script for you. It gives you the freedom to choose your own challenges, to choose your own excitement.
Well, on that note, I think we have plenty for you to chew on there. Whether you want to fire your boss, fire your bad customers, or maybe just fire a few of the annoying tasks from your daily schedule, the toolkit is there.
It is. And my final piece of advice would be, don't just listen to this and nod your head. The most dangerous thing you can do is agree with all of it, say, that's really smart, and then go right back to checking your email every 5 minutes.
Don't do that. Try the media fast for just 1 week. Calculate your TMI tonight. Define your single biggest nightmare. Just try one thing.
Action is the only metric that really counts.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.